Hey everyone, welcome to a fun bonus episode. I recently participated in a simulcast with the Billy Dees podcast alongside filmmaker Sara Alessandrini, during which we discussed Iran, immigration, the Epstein files, and more. After you've listened to the episode, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Enjoy!
You are listening to the Billy Dees podcast.
Welcome to a special live show of the Billy Dees podcast with Sara Alessandrini, filmmaker and political commentator, and Sam Wooldrik from the Shades of Jade podcast.
All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the program. As always, I am absolutely thrilled that you are here. We are live tonight. With me is Samantha Jade. She's a podcaster and she's got a podcast called the Shades of Jade podcast. Samantha, so glad you are here.
Thank you for having me.
Also, Sara Alessandrini. Sara is a filmmaker. You can catch her documentary. Is it Apple TV, correct?
Yes, Apple TV and Tubi.
And Tubi. And what exactly is the title again? I'll let you say it so I'll make sure we get it right.
This is what New Yorkers say.
This is what New Yorkers say. It's about Andrew Cuomo. Not necessarily about him, but how that whole thing with him being a media darling at first, and then once the accusations started, that whole media, how it morphed. It's a 5-part series. It's extremely good. Do check it out. Sara is an amazing talent when it comes to that type of thing. And we're glad to have her here. What we are talking about there, we'll look at all kinds of stuff to talk about. I don't even know where to start. I mean, obviously, the news is just absolutely loaded. We're going to talk about Iran. We're going to talk about immigration and the Epstein files. The Epstein files have been a focus of Samantha. And I got to tell you, a couple things here real quick. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the state of podcasting because it seems like some of the top ones have just gone absolutely nuts. Okay. I don't know if you followed what's been going on with Tucker Carlson and, all these others. And I got to tell you, Megyn Kelly, I really liked her. Candace Owens at one time, I kind of thought that she would be a good political candidate. And now,
Same.
And now all of a sudden, they're calling each other names and it's becoming a circus. And what really makes me sad about this is I hate to say something disparaging, but they're basically rejects from the cable news environment, and the cable news environment is in the toilet. It really is.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, CNN is getting in prime time is getting like 300 some odd thousand people. In a country of 333 million. It's just absolutely insane. And the podcasting medium has become so respected. It was a key thing in the presidential election. And what I don't want to have happen is for podcasting to become a punchline like MSNBC. Have you followed this? Now, you're a podcaster, Smith. Have you followed this at all?
Yes, and it's strange how things have turned so quickly, especially recently. I've noticed comments on X saying multiple people are saying the last thing we need is another podcaster. And I'm like,
that's what I'm afraid
why?
of.
I mean, yeah, I don't want competition, but I don't know if that's coming from people responding to people like Candace Owens and other people who are kind of just out there now.
Yes.
I'm really not sure.
I think it's also overwhelming because podcasts, I mean, we're going to talk here for 1 hour, 2 hours, who knows what. But if there are so many good podcasts you want to follow every week, where do you find the time with so many good podcasts too? Yeah. I don't like Candace Owens. I've not put that in the category. But in general, it's so overwhelming how many podcasts are out there, which is great. It's great
yes.
too.
Well, the one thing that's good about podcasts, and I don't want to turn the show into a show about podcasts because nothing's more boring than that, right? I mean, it's just like Hollywood always thinks that making a movie about making movies is so intriguing, and it's really not. But the one thing nice about podcasts, especially on the audio platforms, we do pretty well on the audio platforms, Spotify and, Apple Podcast and all these. And, it's a very passive medium. So, while you're on your way to work, well, on your lunch hour or whatever, you can listen to a podcast. You don't have to sit down and read it or sit down and watch it. You can take it in while you're doing something else. So for that reason, when people going on a trip, I mean, you know, they'll just, you know, do a deep dive into this. True crime's got to be the biggest, you know.
Yeah.
I think there's more true crime podcasts than there are true crimes. But yeah, there's a lot of them out there. So anyway, the nation is divided, and that's kind of is what's spawning some of this madness in the podcast sphere. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to play this clip for you because this is James Carville. Okay. And this is James Carville talking about President Trump. Here we go.
Okay. This is what we believe. You're right. I got Trump derangement syndrome. I hate the motherfucker. And you know what? I don't want to get rid of it. I don't want to get better. I want to get worse. I want to hate him more. I pray to God in heaven, God reign the righteous reign of Trump derangement syndrome. Pray for me, Lord. I'm your vessel on this earth. Pray for the people that listen to this. We want more. We want to hate the son of a bitch so much that we can't see straight.
Okay. Now, I'm if you're familiar with James Carville, sometimes he's funny. You know, he comes up with these Southern witticisms like, you know, if ifs and buts were beers and nuts, would have a hell of a party. You know, that type of stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
But this is where we're heading now. And when you start getting into issues like Iran, immigration, things like that, you really cannot have that mindset. Sara, you interviewed a lot of people in New York. A lot of them had strong feelings about the Cuomos in general, all of them. When you see something like that, what does that say to you? And keep in mind, there's a lot of people who are cheering that. They're not laughing. I laughed at it, but there's a lot of people who are cheering that. What does that say to you about the current climate in the country?
I mean, again, I'm from Italy, so I'm seeing that not just in the country. I see that in other countries too. It's, I mean, to me, yeah, it's very not helpful in general.
Yeah.
It's everything is very polarized. And yeah, there are people with Trump derangement syndrome. Tucker Carlson has Israel derangement syndrome.
Yes, he does.
There are people that have Zora Mamdani derangement syndrome. Like, you know how much I criticize him. And I think there is so many things you can criticize him for. There is no reason to make up a new one because there is already enough to use. Mm-hmm. So, but there are people that are, yeah, just want to find reasons to attack others and hate. And there is that anger. Like, actually, I've been like a little out of social media in the past couple of weeks because between Italy and this country, I feel, especially like since the war started, I feel like everybody has so many opinions. Everybody knows so much about everything.
Everybody's an expert.
In the podcast environment. It's like, first of all, we should say we, as much as we would like to comment on everything, we don't know as much as the president of the United States knows because he would know confidential information. He would know so many more things than what we know. And so it's just like overwhelming how people put so many emotions right now in everything. And there is no space for like a full conversation balanced. Okay, we can disagree on policy. We can disagree on a lot of things, but we also have to recognize what we don't know. And we don't know every truth.
Yes.
So it's hard with people because there is a lot of emotions right now in every topic. So.
Yeah. Samantha. You're obviously in the podcast sphere. You probably get negative comments just like I do. How many people do you think are based in reality, whether you agree with them or not? The worry I have is there's people that are not in the same universe. They're not playing by the same rules of physics. They have their own reality.
You know, I think people are becoming characters. Like, right, that clip you just showed, it almost seemed like a cartoon character. And the more outrageous you are, the more views you get. Unfortunately, you get rewarded for bad behavior. And I think that a lot of podcasters and media personalities are getting sucked up in that and are not spending enough time in the real world and not enough time checking themselves. You know, like maybe think if you're thinking straight about things a little bit more often.
Speaking of the president, he had the Japanese prime minister at the White House today. And I know, I think I'm going to go out on this. Sarah doesn't quite appreciate the humor that I do. I think this is hilarious. Sarah probably won't think it's funny. But he was asked by a Japanese reporter why he didn't tell the Allies and a lot of other people that the attacks in Iran were imminent. Okay. And this,
I think I saw the video too.
And this was the response.
And very hard. And we didn't tell anybody about it because we wanted surprise. Who knows better about surprise than Japan? Okay? Why didn't you tell me about Pearl Harbor? Okay? Right? You know, he's asking me, no, you believe in surprise, I think, much more so than us.
Okay. Obviously, he's referring to...
It was funny for me, too.
Okay.
It was funny. Because, I mean, it's true. Like, especially in the era of social media, like, everybody say, oh, you should have told the people, you should have told... I understand the importance of telling people, but when something like maybe like 50 years ago, 80 years ago, you could tell your people and maybe there was no spy in that room. But now on social media, as soon as you say to anyone, it goes viral and everywhere around the world, everybody knows. So that what's the point? If you want to attack someone, they will know it's coming. So.
Yeah. I was referring to our pre-production meeting when I said some of these we might laugh at or something. And Sarah says, "What do you mean laugh at? It's politics." Well, that's sometimes hysterical. Let me say that I'll give you my 2 cents, and then I'll go to Samantha first on Iran. I don't know that I was opposed to the attack on Iran. I was opposed to Iraq a number of years ago. I knew that was going to be a bad idea because they were planning on going in. And even Bush's father said that wasn't a good idea because he was criticized back in the first Gulf War about why didn't he take him out when he had the chance. And he says, taking him out was one thing. Policing the nation was going to be another. And he was exactly correct. Okay. In regard to Iran, the way it was presented to me was that this was going to be an attack to weaken the regime and take out their capabilities for nuclear weapons. My father was a combat veteran. His brother was killed in combat. My dad died when I was very young, but I did have enough of a chance to have some adult conversations with him. And one of the things he always said was you basically follow 3 rules when you go in on something like this. Number 1, you clearly define who the bad guy is. And in this case, it's the mullahs and the ayatollahs and all the others, right? And you move to take them out. Then you go in with an overwhelming force. And the third step is you get the hell out. And getting the hell out is the problem that the United States has. We do the first 2 usually pretty well, but we have a tendency to stay.
Yeah.
And that would be my only concern is, as long as this attack is a controlled attack, it has certain parameters, and then there's clearly a time to leave. And here again, time will only tell. I don't know if this was a good idea or not. I wasn't adamantly against it like I was Iraq. But with that being said, if this works, Iran has been one of the largest state sponsors of terror in the world. Mm-hmm. I'm old enough to remember the hostage crisis. I'm old enough to remember the bombing in Beirut that killed the Marines. And all through the decades, death to America, death to Israel. This is not a good thing to have around. And if you are going to have any type of stability in that region, you can't have somebody sponsoring terrorism. It just can't work. So with that being said, I'm in a wait and see mode. Samantha, I'll start with you. Your take on Iran.
So I don't like U.S. involvement where we don't need to be involved. However, we needed to be involved with this. And I think that people opposed to our strikes on Iran seem to have forgotten that they've been chanting death to America for decades now, and I know that there was some testimony on this today or yesterday, that they have proof that they started rebuilding their nuclear capabilities immediately after we struck them a few months ago.
Yeah.
The number I saw was about 100 ballistic missiles a month were being produced. And we've also seen that there's evidence that they've tried to assassinate President Trump. Someone's been charged for that, for being involved in that. It's completely reasonable. And also the fact that it could free Iranians from a horrible regime is just a bonus for me. I hope that they are able to find a proper alternative, new government, and find true freedom. And I'm happy that America can protect itself while also help the Iranian people.
Sure. One of the things that they were on track to, I know a lot of people are debating how imminent nuclear capability was coming together. But even their conventional missiles, they were churning them out at a pretty good rate, to the point where it wouldn't be too long before they could overwhelm the defenses of countries in that region, like the Iron Domes and everything. I hear again, anytime there's violence, anytime there's a war, you have to be very skeptical and be very cautious. Never gung ho about these things, but I'm comfortable with what, waiting and see. Sara, you have a different perspective because
I don't know if I have a different perspective, honestly.
Okay, well, I let me put it this way: you have a different background because we're the Americans, right? We're the Yankees. Everybody's Yankee go home, right?
I might be more America first than you guys are at this point of my life. I don't know.
Well, that's fantastic. Now you have been following this. I know you're too entrenched in world events and geopolitics not to have an opinion. What say you about what's going on with Iran?
Well, to me, actually, what was that, 2-3 weeks ago when this started, like on the day after, because here I'm in Los Angeles, so this happened. It was like in the evening, so the day after.
Yeah.
Actually, I went to see, because there is like a neighborhood in Los Angeles that is like in the Iranian one. So I decided to go and see what people were doing. Because speaking to my Iranian friends, I knew that they wanted America to actually take action. So I already had that in mind. So to me, it was, when that happened, obviously, there are so many reasons. Obviously, it's never only one reason why it's a good or it's a bad reason. It's a bad thing to do. But so when I went there and I saw how everybody, like Iranian people, were celebrating, I had this very stupid thought. And it was like, when have I seen that in my life before? Like people celebrating, being that happy. And it reminded me of the only moment I could point in my life was 2006. 2006, Italy won the World Cup.
Oh.
So that was to me, it made me think. It's like, okay, so the only moment where you see that pride of belonging to a place, Italy is not patriotic country. We're very divided. Each region, we feel like we're part of our region more than we feel we're part of Italy. So it's very different even from America. But that pride of belonging to something or something that happened, if you're from the Italian background, you have only seen that only in the World Cup. And it's stupid. It's so stupid because there's so many things going on in the world. But that made me think, if that is your background, that the only moment you actually have seen so much happiness as the Iranian people have seen when the US and Israel attack, how can you even understand what they're feeling? If you cannot understand what they're feeling, you should not tell them what's right and what's wrong. And I've seen a lot of people, especially I've been posting some of the videos from that day or sharing the voices of Iranian people, even from Italy. Some people were asking me, are people celebrating? They couldn't even believe that people were celebrating for Trump, for Bibi, with the Israeli flags. They couldn't even imagine that. So a friend of mine was telling me, this is not what the Iranian people need. It's well, you're not from there. Let the Iranian people decide what they need. We can have all our opinion about, okay, is it constitutional for the attack? Was it done in the proper way? How long should be there? This is all important thing to decide. But if this was a good thing or a bad thing for the Iranian people, only the Iranian people can decide that. And we should give them the space for that.
Yeah. The one thing I would say is anytime there is a regime change, you have to be careful of outside forces. One of the things that you don't hear too much about the American Civil War is that one of the reasons that Lincoln wanted to wrap that up as quickly as possible, and one of the reasons why he wanted to make slavery a moral issue, especially as his second term was rolling in, was because he was afraid England was going to get involved. And the longer a civil war goes on, the longer that a conflict goes on, Syria would be a good example of that, where there's inner conflict, the more outside forces start getting involved and start meddling in it. So if this is going to happen, and let me just historically, Lincoln made slavery a moral issue, fearing England was going to get involved. By that time, England had already abolished slavery, and he knew the king was not going to take up forces on behalf of a pro-slavery country. But anyway, that's part of the subtleties of the Lincoln presidency, knowing that civil wars draw in people that are going to try to push things their way. So the longer this thing goes on in Iran, the longer other forces in that region are going to try to meddle in it. And oftentimes the people that come in are worse than what you had before. I am skeptical, Samantha, I'll go to you on this. I'm skeptical that Iran is going to adopt a democratic type of government. I hear a lot of that kind of talk. I've also heard, the Shah's family could be coming back. Mm-hmm. I think they got to get that in order first, and they don't have much time. They have to have something ready to go once that regime starts to slip. And that could be relatively soon. If they don't have something ready to go, who knows what's going to step in there? What's your opinion? What do you think is going to happen there?
I'm afraid that the people that are ready to step in are not the people that the people of Iran want.
Yeah.
It seems like there's a lot of different groups wanting to take over. And I'm not seeing, just from interactions with other people from within the Iranian, outside of Iran, trying to work towards a new government. I'm not seeing a full leader there, and I'm not seeing someone that doesn't have a bad past as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sara, let me go to you on this. This is kind of like a philosophical, religious type question, because you're good with this kind of stuff. In that region, and I'm not saying because you're from Italy, but Italy's part of that region's history with Catholicism and Christianity, certainly. You have obviously Israel, with the Jewish faith, and of course, you have the Muslim faith there. And here's where I'm going to sound negative on religion, and I don't necessarily this isn't the point I'm trying to make. I'm not trying to be negative on religion, but in terms of how history has evolved, all three of those religions, which are probably three of the predominant religions in the world, all three of those religions have basically the same origin story and the same Holy Land, Jerusalem and all that. Okay. And these religions are based on ancient texts that were written by people that couldn't even explain what a day was in astronomical terms. Yet what they wrote is so important that we have been killing each other by the millions for the last 2,000 years. I find that odd. I maybe that's too broad of a question. Maybe it doesn't fit this conversation. But what say you about that region, and why are beliefs so important that people have to kill each other over them?
Well, actually, I come from a communist area of Italy, so religion is not really important in my region. Actually, we swear a lot against God, so that's a different conversation.
Well,
that's when
enough.
we talk about God in my region. I think, when you read about places, I think you always look at them through your own personal perspective. So to me, Italy. Technically, Italy is like a very Catholic country, but in reality, it's not.
Okay.
It's more like religion is right now. It's more like culture. We don't believe, and I think I mentioned last time when I was talking to you, but like we don't believe as much about religion is like some people in America, even in this country, there are people that are really believe in religion, fanatic. Everything is about the religion. In Italy, if you go once a year to the church, you go just because, just in case heaven actually exists, you don't want to be on the wrong side of history. that's like
fire insurance.
Yeah, like that's why, like, you believe in God just in case. I don't like, and the North is different than the South. The North is more godless, I guess. The South, they still have like more of those beliefs. But yes, I mean, if you ask me why people would like put so much thoughts and like so much war for like a religion, I'm not the right person to answer, because I don't really believe in religions. Like, I have my own personal faith, but I don't like religion that dictates to you how you should believe and what's true and what is not. So to me, I'm not a religious person, and but I don't think I think religion is just one part of the story.
Sure.
So of course, like when there is conflict between population, maybe the religion might be an excuse, but there is such a long history between population, and so it's even at a certain point, it's even hard to say if it's really about religion or if it's just like, okay, we hate you, we just want to conquer this area. So yeah, I think it's hard, and like, yeah, you have to be from that place to really understand what it is, because even when you're saying is there going to be democracy in Iran? I think it also depends how you define democracy, because every country is very different. And like, you can have the king, like some people might want the king back, but even like the UK, all those countries, they still have a king, but they still have election, they still have a regular government. King doesn't mean necessarily what it meant 500 years ago, obviously. Like, you can still have election, like even in Italy, we decided if we wanted the monarchy or if we wanted like the democracy and everything after the war, and we voted for that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think it looks different. So I think they want some kind of democracy, but it might not look like exactly how it looks like for an American mind that is used. Like, even when you go for your election, you go and you vote everything. Like, you have such a long list of things that you vote, which is crazy. Like, even in Italy, you usually just vote the premier, like the prime minister, you vote the Senate and the other one. Yeah. Try to figure out what's the Italian name for that. But yeah, so you usually, and maybe you have like referendum, like we have next week technically. Mm-hmm. So we have those kind of like voting, but we don't generally vote like judges or DAs. So every country is very different how you actually then practice the democracy. Yeah.
I would say this. You're absolutely right in that religion is often used as an excuse. You know, there's an old saying that no one ever went to war without God on their side. And that's all true. But I got to tell you, when it comes to that region in the Middle East, you can't understate the power of belief, because I was listening to a comedian the other day, and there was a picture that he saw of the Middle East where somebody was standing in front of a tank with a rock. And the comedian said, you got to be believing in something when you stand in front of a tank ready to throw a rock. You know, you got to be believing in something. And I'm not sure at that point if it's a healthy thing to be believing in. Do you have any comments, any follow-up comments, Sam?
Yeah, it's I mean, it is a little bit different in the Middle East as far as, I mean, you know, we do have the Republicans in America that are based on Christianity. You know, they have close ties with Christianity. However, you don't see people in America out there really, I mean, I guess this can be argued differently from the left. You don't see the actions in America like you see in the Middle East, based on religion. Like, the government's not actually killing people. I just personally think that religion needs to stay out of politics and the government. Yeah. Completely. But
I mean, it's funny to me when like people and there is so much to criticize the right and all you're talking about, but it's funny how people like are so afraid of Trump and the right for taking away your rights if you're a woman, if you're like, and yes, of course, we can talk about abortion, how much as you want. But you cannot even compare that to what actually we're talking about in countries like Iran, the kind of rights they take away from you. So you cannot put those, like, you cannot be on the side of the Ayatollah and then say those things about Trump. You're a little deranged if you think that they're on the same level.
Yeah. Well, the left has no boundaries. And if you're new to the program here, obviously we're live tonight. We might have some people that don't normally listen to the program. I'm pretty critical of both left and right. But I will say this is that the left right now, there is no boundaries, and and I think what the left has done, and Bill Maher said this, and I totally agree with it. Not everybody in the Democratic Party is crazy, but the problem is they are silent about the ones that are. They let them go on and on and on. And when you have Democrats saying, that there's similarities, and we're going to talk about immigration, with what's going on with ICE and throwing people in concentration camps. That type of analogy is exactly what got Trump elected, because people looked at that and said, okay, yeah, Trump is crazy, but in comparison with that, I'll take that brand of crazy over there in regard to this other, with what's going on the left. That's what really cost the election for the Democrats, is their madness has no boundaries. Talking about immigration and what's going on with ICE, I really feel that they made a mistake with optics and they made a mistake with recruitment when it comes to ICE. Yeah. I think that most people understand if you have violent gang members illegally here in the United States, they should be removed. And I don't understand why they initially, anyway, for the purpose of optics and making their mission understood, that they didn't stay on that path. They instead, you see these images, and how much they're exploited is another thing entirely. But, these cooks that have been, washing dishes in these kitchens for 20 years, and they're being hauled out on a set of wheels like Hannibal Lecter with a mask on and everything. At that point, the message is getting lost. And the last shooting there in Minnesota was questionable. It was. It's just, you could really break that one down and find some fault with it. So where are the mistakes, and where do we go from here? And I'll start with Samantha on that.
Well, I think removing Kristi Noem from her position was a good start. You'll see. So I just saw that some deportation flights were leaving Minnesota yesterday, yet we're not hearing about it on the news anymore. So deportation efforts have continued, but probably not in as aggressive as a manner as it was before. And I agree that how we got to deporting just everyone, I liked that earlier in 2025, there was the message, I think, with Brooke Rollins. I think it was here in Iowa, actually. They talked about not deporting those that work on farms and in hotels, et cetera. And I know that they received some backlash because there are people on the right that want every illegal alien deported. However, when you have so many people come across the border, I know people trying to get citizenship, and I know Sarah can talk about this as well. It's not that easy. And when your immigration lawyers, especially here in Iowa, they're basically covering everybody for this state. It can take months. Your work visa can expire. You could be doing everything you can to remain legal. And I think that refocusing, making sure we are focusing on the violent criminals, can give some of the other immigrants some time to gain their citizenship. I didn't like the messaging that they were. I kind of don't like a lot of the White House messaging, their videos that they make when they're loading up these immigrants onto planes and making it look like they're all these hardened criminals. It sends a bad message.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the common sense notion that violent criminals shouldn't be here, you shouldn't be here illegally, we should be securing the border. These are all common sense things that I believe most Americans in essence believe in. But here again, some of the optics on this, and a lot of this had to do with aggressive recruitment, from what I understand. If those reports are true, you get a lot of people in there that weren't properly trained, and it's unfortunate the way this has turned ugly. It was a sensitive issue to begin with. Sarah, your opinion on this?
Sarah has been spending the last 2 minutes trying to figure out how to respond to that, because it's such an emotional topic for me.
Yes.
And I'm so mad. So I'm just like trying to figure out how I want to respond. Because, yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy, because the conversation in politics is always about the one that come into the country illegally. The left has never said anything about the legal immigration for the past years. And for people like me, it's very like, it's maddening, like this crazy, the way how the conversation is handled. And there is so much that should be fixed in the legal immigration. And it's so hard. It's so hard when you're legally trying to be in this country to do everything right. And you're never going to even do everything right, because there are even things that for no one human being would even think that those could be wrong. So it's that strict. But then you hear on the left very often, but like the idea is like, okay, if you're in the country, you've done everything wrong. Like you enter in the country legally, you have... If you pay taxes either by stealing someone's social security, which is fraud, or you have a number that is fake, which is still fraud. Or if you didn't pay taxes, then it's still another issue that you didn't pay taxes. So it's like we should acknowledge that it's not okay, everything. And I think there are still too many people that say, oh, because it's not a violent crime, it's not a big deal. So for me, being in the middle of that, it's even hard to figure out how I feel about everything. Because, of course, if you find someone whose visa has expired, there are gray area situations, like Sam was saying, like, okay, your visa expired, but technically maybe you have 2 months before you need to renew the next one. There is a grace period, or maybe there is an automatic extension while you're waiting for the processing. There are all these kind of situations. So if someone is getting deported during those time, following the rules, that's obviously very wrong, and they should be given due process and everything. If you're in the country and your visa expired 20 years ago and you're still in the country, maybe you're still working legally. But if they find you, like, I don't say that the immigration should spend money looking for all those situations, because of course the problem ends up being how much money and effort takes to actually deal with each individual situation. Yeah. But if someone, the visa expired 20 years ago, like, of course, I'm here legally. If my visa expired, I'm supposed to go home. I'm not going to be, I believe in immigration. I believe in laws. I respect this country. So you're not going to hear me saying, well, but just because, like, you've been on the visa for 10 years, so you can spend after 2 years without the visa. You're not going to hear me say that, obviously. So you have to see each individual situation. And in the media, obviously, they don't talk about the information right, and so it's very difficult and it's very polarized. But even like what Tom Homan was saying, we're not putting effort and resources into looking for people who didn't commit crime. But if we find them, because you're picking up a group of people and one of them is in the country legally, it's normal that you're supposed to deport that person or to do the process. Of course, there is a process. You don't just take a person because they don't have their paperwork and send them on an airplane. There is a process. But it is very difficult, and it's very, like, the emotional part for me that I've been dealing with this, like with visas over these years. Like, you see how this country is giving visas for, like, green cards for free to people from other countries, like the green card lottery. You have no idea who those people are. You don't know if they're good or bad people. Of course, there are good people. I also met some bad people that maybe they're not criminals, but they're not good people. Like, so there are all those areas. So these people are getting a green card for free just because they won a lottery. And they haven't invested anything in this country. They have done nothing in this country. They just come and they have the permit to work however they want. people that go through the process, like people like me, we normally maybe come here, we study here, we get a student visa, then you get a temporary work visa, and then you renew the visa a few times before you can even apply for the green card. So, but it's very difficult. Like, I can tell you how many lawyers told me I didn't qualify for the visa, even after I already got the visa. I met a lawyer after I already got approved. When I was renewing, he told me, you should not have gotten the visa. It's like, the immigration approved it, so maybe you don't know my situation enough. This was like an employment lawyer. I was not even, like, didn't even know my situation. But it's so crazy that you're always struggling with every single moment you're struggling. And even now, like, when talking to lawyers about getting a green card, they say, okay, yeah, you qualify for a green card. That's the situation I'm going right now. But because your situation is not that straightforward, and the immigration will do everything possible to say that every proof that you have is not true. So if they tell you you have to give this proof, you give them the proof, you show them that everything is right. But the lawyers say, but immigration will do everything possible to claim that what you have is not true. It's like, I've been here for 10 years. I've contributed, I paid taxes. I've always had jobs, like multiple jobs at the same time. Why should I work even harder to get the green card? Like, it should be easier once you get to that point. They can see what you have done. It should be easier to get the green card at that point, not harder, not they're going to find an excuse. And that's where I'm questioning too, because if they have to cut immigration, it's much easier to deny a visa when someone is applying for that is doing the legal process than having to look for someone who is illegal in the country. So even that, when people are so open and welcoming, I don't know, are we making it actually easier for the people that actually are going through the process, or easier for the people that are cheating the system and making it harder for the people actually are following the system? So
yeah. Well, you bring up an excellent point. And I think when you hear about the American dream, the idea is to come here and be a success. I don't think somehow the left has turned this into an entitlement, that you get an easy ride once you're here and that's it. Canada is harder to get into than the United States. I would bet there's a lot of countries out of Switzerland and others. And this isn't, hatred. This is what the left does. A very reasonable approach. Like, you lock your door at night, not because you hate the world, not because you hate everybody that's out there, but you don't want anybody to come in until you get a chance to know who they are. Now, that's a very reasonable outlook of what immigration should be like. But the left will listen to that, very straightforward, very reasonable, and say, no, you're a hater. You're against immigration. No, we just want to know who's coming in. Okay.
It actually happened to me because you said when we were on the podcast, like the first time, you shared that clip, and a friend of mine told me how that was wrong what you said. He's from Italy. And I still cannot understand what was wrong about that, but because everybody think, okay, all the immigrants, they're all people coming from desperate situation, looking for a better opportunity, so you should open doors. But first of all, that's only one type of immigrant that is coming here. There are so many types of immigrants, and some people are even coming from like wealthy families, like you don't know. But so you have to look at each individual situation. But the majority of people, they could go to another country if this country said no. And this is not the only country in the world. It's actually one of the most difficult to come in. So especially if you're you're from Mexico or from Canada or this country, maybe it's much easier to come here, even crossing if you're desperate, if you don't have money. But from everybody in the rest of the world, going into Europe is much simpler anyway.
Yeah.
And you get like a health insurance for free. You get a lot of benefits that you will not get here. So yeah, like coming to this country, not everybody comes here. It comes here because they're desperate. A lot of people just want better opportunities, but
yes,
this is not the only country.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I really appreciate your opinion on this, sir, because I really do think that legal immigration should be made easier, not illegal immigration. And there's so many people with good ideas that we would love to have here, and so many people that would enrich our society. So many immigrants have done so many incredible things in this country. and contributed to Americanism as a whole. Legal immigration should be easier. Illegal should be harder. A final thought, Samantha?
I completely agree. It's been an issue for a long time, and if somebody's going to be here and contribute, we want them here.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. We're going to get into Epstein.
Right.
And I know Samantha she's done a whole thing on this on her podcast. And you talked about this. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but I have the clip for you. Okay. So here's Senator John Kennedy.
How can I put this? Christmas ornaments, drywall, and Jerry Epstein. Name 3 things that don't hang themselves. That's what the American people think. That's what the American people think. And they deserve some answers.
All right. That's a great line. And he's got a ton of them. Sarah, this is a funny guy. I don't know if you probably know.
I know you.
Yeah. Yeah, I love him.
This whole thing with Epstein, here's the problem. I want bad people to be locked up. Absolutely 100%. But here's the deal. If you're a Democrat and a Republican somehow shows up on one of these reports, one of these lists, oh, look how terrible he is. And it's the other way around. Like the other party will do the same thing. You're guilty by association. And the fact of the matter is, somebody like Epstein, who was not even in the 1%, not even in the 1% or the 10%. I mean, he's among the ultra rich. And somebody who's got that kind of money can buy a lot of access. They can get into the most exclusive goings on, the most exclusive parties, the most exclusive meetings, the most exclusive fundraisers where plates cost $100,000 for a seat. And of course, for somebody like Epstein, that's pocket change. And what that buys you is access. I think that's one of the reasons why he wanted to, make associations with the prince, with former Prince Andrew, because that opened a lot of doors for him in Europe. And you get your picture taken with these people. That's part of the perks of going to these things and paying these high dollar, entrance fees, is so that you can get your pictures taken with high ranking politicians, celebrities, and all this. And I believe a lot of these politicians when they say they don't remember the pictures taken, because this happens. It's part of things that go on every year with these fundraisers. And going back 10, 15, 20 years, you could show me a picture of somebody I took a picture with and I wouldn't remember it if it's from 1993 or something like that, it's become weaponized. This whole thing has become weaponized, and I don't know if that's good for getting to the truth. You followed this, Samantha, on your podcast. What's the status of this now?
So it's very frustrating. Attorney General Pam Bondi is going to testify, whether we can believe anything she says or not. I don't really believe anything she says, but maybe Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche will be a little bit more honest when he testifies about it. What I'm finding is that it seems like people involved with Epstein from other countries are actually facing repercussions. There's actually things about them in the files. The more I dig into people from the United States, the less I'm finding that I'm just going to say that I wouldn't be surprised if every administration went through those files and deleted things, because I'm seeing things where, as I've said before, a crime has occurred, but you can't prove it. Like the way that they're talking about things, the way certain images are, you can tell that they're doing something wrong. Bill and Hillary Clinton, they kind of didn't really testify the same things. Hillary wanted to go after Trump. Bill was saying he never saw Trump do anything wrong. And then it's just becoming a mess. I'm seeing with the AI images, people with a lot of followers are posting fake images and videos everywhere. And it doesn't take me very long to make sure that they're real or not. Like I work full time on top of this. I can only put out an episode on Epstein maybe every couple of weeks. It takes me some time. That's it's becoming a mess. And recently, the interesting thing I found was Steve Tisch, the NFL Giants guy and producer, one of the filmmakers behind Forrest Gump. He used Epstein to set him up with women, and no one's called for his testimony. I think Pam Bondi said that she didn't think it was necessary. Yet there's tons and tons of emails where Epstein was setting him up with women. He's asking if they're pro or civilian or if they're working girls. This is after Epstein was convicted for soliciting prostitution from a minor. And no one seems to think that it's necessary to have Steve Tisch testify about these women that Epstein set him up with. I mean, if he doesn't even know if they were being trafficked or not, I think that that's worth looking into. But for some reason, our eyes are on other people.
Yeah. Well, everybody's hoping for this gigantic downfall of somebody, and I'm skeptical, and I was skeptical with the Diddy thing too. I just don't know that when people hear about this list, that they think of some black book. And there's all these names and addresses and check receipts, and that isn't how it works. I mean, sure, Bill Clinton could be in there, Trump could be in there, and President Lincoln and Andrew Taft could be in there too. Yeah. That doesn't put them at the scene of a crime. That doesn't mean that person really is that person, and that's what they were doing. So it's more complicated than that. And like I said, I wish that this thing had not been politicized, because now you don't know who to believe. When things get politicized, you don't know who or what to believe. Sara, I know this would be a great documentary, wouldn't it?
No, I do only documentaries about things that other people don't care about.
Okay.
like if something is so mainstream, then someone else can do it. I do where if something is important, but other people are not paying attention, that I would consider.
I see. Okay.
Like something that you don't understand that is important because everybody's always into the mainstream. But I mean, it's a very, polarized topic, and people are doing politics with this. Like during the New York campaign, Zohran Mamdani, he made one of these videos claiming that Cuomo was in the Epstein files. And that's just because apparently his ex-wife, Cuomo's ex-wife, which she's a candidate, and she was friend with Ghislaine Maxwell many years ago. So there was a note about their wedding, and I think she went to their wedding, but he just was Ghislaine Maxwell, not Cuomo. So, but he made these big videos Cuomo, tell us we're in the Epstein file. And so, of course, that was something that was used for him to win the election too, because all the efforts were to try to make Cuomo a horrible human being. So, of course, the Epstein, even if it's not true, it always sells.
Yeah.
And now it's funny because then when there was the release, his mother, Zohran Mamdani's mother, Mira Nair, she was in the files because apparently she's a filmmaker. And so she was invited to some, no, she was invited. I think it was Ghislaine Maxwell did a party for one of her movies.
Yeah.
So now talking about the AI, so they started releasing this fake picture of Zohran Mamdani as a kid together with Epstein and everybody else. And of course, now he's heartbroken. Of course, people are so mean to him because it's not true. So he played that game against Cuomo, and now he's crying because other people played that game with him. And I think that's what's happening with other people on the left too. Even Whoopi Goldberg, before she was so cocky, released the files. It's but now in the files, there could be anyone. It's okay, let's lower the temperature and stop putting politics. It shouldn't be about let's find something to win against Trump or whatever. It's a serious issue.
I just to impress upon, when somebody's name very innocently comes up in an investigation, that's one of the reasons why they have redactions, especially with as many nutcases as there are out there. You could get somebody killed for being associated with Epstein, and they might have nothing to do with anything in terms of what was going on there. So I think you have to proceed with caution in this day and age, but it should be done from a legal and law enforcement perspective. not this media circus and this political circus that it has become. The media frenzy, quite frankly, is like if you take red meat and throw it into, a piranha infested water, and the water just starts bubbling red. People just can't bite fast enough on this Epstein stuff. Those types of things, unfortunately, just simply don't often enough lead to the truth. What's true and what isn't starts to develop lines that are very blurry. I will find it odd that in the United States, what you mentioned, Sam, about what's happening in Europe with some of these people that are getting involved and getting snagged by the legal system. Here in the United States, anyway, Ghislaine Maxwell, female, the only person who supposedly over all this trafficking that went on to men, the only person that goes to jail is a woman. And I'm not saying she don't deserve it, but where are all these people that all this trafficking was going to? Sarah, don't you find that question interesting? Where are they?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Yeah. I saw your podcast with Sam. So I was wondering that, when we were talking about that. So, I saw the meme online too about this is typical America. Okay, all these men committing crimes and the only person going to prison is a woman. It is bad.
Yeah, the only thing that's more aggravating than the left complain about that kind of stuff is the left complaining about that kind of stuff when they're right.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll leave you with this. We talked a little bit about podcasting. I really hope, I'll say this. I was, the Billy Dees podcast is more than 10 years old, and I was podcasting before that. I was one of the people when you manually had to set up your podcast and all this. And it was a nerd thing back then. Okay. And, big media wouldn't touch it because that was as far as they were concerned, that was some internet horse shit. Okay. And thousands upon thousands upon thousands of independents like myself and other people built podcasting into the platform that it is, and it became a big medium. Okay. Now big media decides, we got this. We'll plug some money into it. So here comes Tucker, here comes Megyn Kelly, and here comes Dr. Phil and all these other people. And these people weren't passionate about the medium. They are not storytellers. That's not in their DNA. They're not that. Now, I will say the good thing about those types of individuals coming into podcasting is they did bring an audience that may not have come otherwise. Okay, fair enough. But what's happening now is the same buffoons that totally destroyed legacy media, and in particular, cable news, are now turning podcasts into a punchline. And that's my media observation for this episode anyway, and I don't want that to happen. Other media observation is the Academy Awards. I don't know who watched it. I did not, and I will not watch it. And the ratings came out of something on the order of 17, 18 million. And you got to keep in mind 96, 97, and that was when Titanic was. I even watched it that year. Okay. 40, 50 million, something like that. Way down. There's no secret that Hollywood's in trouble, and I think they deserve a lot of it. Some of it they didn't bring on themselves. The lack of creativity, movies looking like video games, over-investing in streaming, all of these things contributed to Hollywood's downfall. And quite frankly, the pandemic, and I have to choose my words very carefully here because I don't want to get doxxed. Mm-hmm. But in regard to the pandemic, that mysterious thing that happened that we won't mention, the Hollywood elites really talked down to Americans, gave them big lectures about how they should be living, and then went off, jet set it off to wherever and did whatever the hell they wanted. And that brought a lot of ill will toward Hollywood. And in the meantime, as people stopped going to theaters during that pandemic thing, they started looking at their phones much more than they did before. And there's TikTok, you can say what you want about it, but there's some extremely talented people on there. I mean, there's people on there can dance like hell won't have it. A lot better than some people in Hollywood. Very talented individuals, and I would say people of a certain age younger. I say that phrase in regard to myself being older, but If you're under the age of 25, there's a real good chance that you have never watched the 6 o'clock news a day in your life. You may not even own a TV. And if you're even younger than that, you probably know who Logan Paul is, but you have no idea who Denzel Washington or Brad Pitt or any of those people are. It's a bad time for Hollywood. And the last thing they need to be doing is standing up on a podium, giving some bullshit political lecture. And that's what happened. Sarah.
Sarah lives in Los Angeles. So
yes, that's why I'm going to you.
I think it's like even before the pandemic, like in general, like I moved here in 2015. But I mean, this city, I don't even know how to describe Los Angeles. It's like not a city. Like it's not like you're talking about the studios, but that's the same way, like the industry. How like there is nothing here. There is nothing. Like people are not going to the movie theater. Like what's to go to the movie theater? Like I work in historic movie theater. The theater I was managing that was like built in 1922, the Egyptian theater, and so there were so many historic places in Los Angeles. Like Los Angeles was all the place to go for like movie theaters. Of course, time has changed. Like that theater was like 1,600 seats when it was built. And at the time, they would screen only one movie for a year. Because, of course, in 1922, there were not that many movies. So, of course, things have changed regularly. Television. So now movie theaters, you don't need that one. It was like 600 seats and we would still fill it up. But mainly when the company I was working for would screen old movies. So you have like in general, like Los Angeles, the administration or California has not even like done anything to preserve that history, to preserve that culture. As a filmmaker, this city is made for the big industries, made for the big studios. If you're a filmmaker, there is nothing. Yeah, there are the schools. There is no community really. It's very divisive. It's not a real city. It's like when people talk about New York, okay, in the past you could be an artist and build from scratch. There was space for everybody. This city is done just for the big money. And so all the people, like the regular people that want to make it, don't really matter. So you're the part of that. And even like when you film now, they're changing the rules about, like in New York, when I film my documentary, there is a rule that say if you just want to film on the street, as long as you're not blocking, as long as you don't have a gun or anything, you can just do it for free. You don't have to get a permit. In Los Angeles, if you're going on with your camera by yourself and you're filming just one person, someone might tell you you're not allowed unless you get a permit. So just how the full industry is built, it's not made. It's made just for those big money, for those streaming, and it's nice that like Netflix has taken over my theater, so at least they care enough to take care of that history and to preserve it, because the rest of the city is not doing, the government is not doing. So it's not just that. There is so much going on in the city, how the industry is like doing everything possible to destroy itself.
Yes. I've listened. I've had some acquaintances and some friends that worked in the industry. A lot of special effects are being subbed out to India now. They're not even being done in the United States, let alone in California, because of costs. If you're filming a movie about Ireland, it's cheaper to fly to Ireland and have Irish people in the background than it is to hire extras in California. Now, what's wrong with that? Samantha, are you a Hollywood fan? Are you a movie type? What's your take on that?
I don't watch very many movies anymore. I've kind of shifted to just political content.
Yeah.
I watch a lot of The Blaze, and or once in a while I'll throw on a TV show. I kind of like those long form stories. But what I have noticed, especially after the last two award shows we had, and Billie Eilish's thing, I saw that she was getting harassed quite a bit about that since her mansions on tribal land. But the sentiment I'm observing is that no one really cares what these big celebrities have to say anymore. And they're almost getting like desperate and pathetic about it. And I'm happy to see it. I think that it's time to stop glorifying these people.
Yeah.
They're not connected with the average person, and why they've been given a platform to talk about politics or tell anyone how to live their lives is beyond me, because they maybe once lived a normal life, but they don't anymore.
Yeah. I really think the illusion, it's kind of like the Wizard of Oz. The man behind the curtain has been exposed. There's nothing special about these people. They're not that talented anymore. They're Nepo babies. They're this and that and the other thing. And like I said, there's people online that can sing better than them, that can dance better than them. Back in the days of Sam Goldwyn and the studios back in the old days in what they call the golden age of Hollywood, they kept a tight leash on their actors. You didn't see them giving interviews or making political appearances or advertising cars and underwear and all this other bullshit. Okay. Tom Cruise is one of the few exceptions. He's too good to do that. And he's probably one of the few. Okay. And he actually, would like him or not, he puts a good product on the screen. He risks his neck doing those stunts. He's probably the last true movie star. He's the last of a generation. And what you have now is people who will do anything to get a camera in their face, and their stupidity shows. That's why old Hollywood, they didn't let Marilyn Monroe and all those old stars talk about politics, because none of them knew shit. And they didn't want that illusion that these were some larger than life figures that are just loaded with talent. They're not that. They're not. And the magic of Hollywood is gone, largely because of that reason.
I watch sometime from Bill Maher. He interviews a lot of famous people, and some people that sometimes are in the news for this kind of activism or whatever it is, politics, and it doesn't seem like they know as much as they pretend to know. Even I told you that in Italy we're dealing with this big referendum that we have to vote next week. I already voted, but they interviewed this person. She's a famous singer in Italy. And I just look at that piece of interview. It was a few minutes long, and she's a very famous singer. And she was talking about how she's voting not for the referendum because normal people cannot understand what that referendum is about. And so you should not ask people to vote for that. And I'm first of all, yeah, some referendum are so insane. It's so hard to understand them. This one is not that difficult, but also it's just it's so easy to understand when you're not making up stuff. And I think the problem that is happening is also a lot of famous people are saying that this referendum is going to change things. That is not true, because when you actually read it, it's a lot of people are inventing stuff.
Yeah.
But this famous person saying that the regular person cannot understand this referendum, when it's pretty clear the average person can. Maybe you cannot, but we should also try to make people, if that is the case, we need to elevate people. We need to help them understand this concept better, not make people more stupid that they cannot even vote.
Yeah.
So
the sad thing about somebody like Robert De Niro, now there's a guy who was legitimately talented. If you saw him, some of the roles he did, he's done the whole gamut. He has turned his legacy into a punchline. You would listen to him talk, and he's no different than the guy in your neighborhood you're talking across the fence who's mowing his lawn, bitching about stuff. He doesn't sound any different than any of those people. No different at all. Closing word on Hollywood, Samantha.
I guess I agree with you guys. I'm kind of enjoying watching them lose their credibility and their viewership. And I saw someone mention something about why can't we go back to the day when actors were just viewed as peasants and all they cared about was acting. And I think they need to stay in their lane. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. There's nothing special when they talk about the average person. They're not even that. Sara, let's start with you as we wrap things up here. Great talk. We'll have to do this again sometime. I think there's a certain magic, there's a certain discipline to going live. There's no redos, there's no editing. I mean, this is what it is.
We never redid anything anyway, like even when we record. It's pretty straightforward.
Yes. Sara Alessandrini, filmmaker. This is what New Yorkers say, available on Apple TV. Very well done documentary. It's a 5-part series. Sara, you're a prime example of somebody who really is deserving to shine. Very talented. Where can people find out more about you and what you're doing?
They can find me on social media, usually like X. They can go on my website. This is what NewYorkersSay.com. So they can find all my links over there. They can find the links where the documentary is on. There is the link to my Substack where I wrote an article. And it's a long essay that we talked about last time, actually, that I was here. And and you can find all my social medias over there.
Fantastic. Samantha, the Shades of Jade podcast. Where can people find you?
I'm on at Shades of Jade Pod on most social media platforms. And the podcast is on Apple, Spotify, Rumble, and YouTube right now. That's pretty straightforward at Shades of Jade Pod.
Well, that is fantastic. My name is Billy Dees, and as far as social media goes, I guess you can find me on X, which at one time, not too long ago, was called Twitter. At Billy Dees, that's kind of like my social media home, and I've just opened an account on Reddit, so we'll see what happens there. The podcast is over 10 years old now. And you can find the Billy Dees podcast on any major podcast platform. We are on them all. Thank you, you two, and thank you to everyone who listened. It's been a great conversation, and we'll talk to you all again very, very soon. I'm Billy Dees and host of the self-titled podcast, The Billy Dees Podcast. We are primarily an interview and a commentary-based podcast featuring authors and creators talking about their craft, advocates for community issues, and myself and an array of co-hosts discussing current events. There's no partisan ranting and raving going on here, just great content. You can find the Billy Dees Podcast on your favorite platform and on Twitter at Billy Dees. Thank you, and I hope you listen in.